they have to be out of those positions before you can sort of make any progress?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is sort of the bare minimum, along with the other points that you mentioned there.
Why do you hate them so much?
Well, because they have been instrumental in the downfall of Britain.
If you want to vote for a party on the right of British politics, you're almost spoilt for choice these days. Kemi Badenoch has led the Conservatives in a more rightward direction. Of course, there's Reform UK, or if you want to go full fat, arguably the most right of right, you can pluck for Restore. The trouble with this smorgasbord of right-wingery is that the first-past-the-post electoral system that we have here does run the risk that they end up eating each other's lunch, leaving a revived Labour Party under Andy Burnham a much easier task of holding on to power. And so, very cautiously, the discussion about doing a deal is occurring, or perhaps more accurately, talk of cooperation is now being openly aired as a possibility between Reform and Restore. This is awkward because its two respective leaders, Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, have publicly hated each other for the past 18 months, ever since Lowe was kicked out of Reform, having previously been elected as one of their MPs. Earlier this evening, my colleague Kate Borsay spoke to Nigel Farage, where he gave us his thoughts on a Reform-Restore deal.
He's not a very easy person to deal with, but if there is a chat to be had, I will have that chat.
And how powerful could it be, a Reform-Restore coalition?
Well, it's not so much how powerful it could be, it's just the potential that a Restore vote could damage Reform's prospects of winning many, many seats. The honest truth is, a lot of Restore so-called supporters are beginning to recognise that.
Let's speak to Montgomery Toms, Restore Britain spokesperson. Good evening to you, Montgomery.
Hi there, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. So what would a cooperation with Reform look like? We're not talking about a merger here, are we?
No, we're not. And in terms of the details and specifics of that, that's something that would be discussed should that ever come forward. So I can't talk right now on the actual details of what that is. But no, you're quite right in saying that it wouldn't be a merger as such, but it would be sharing the same set of principles, ideas, and saying, right, well, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to collaborate on in order to restore, I would say, Britain to the nation it once was.
Your leader, Rupert Lowe, he put out this video on, I think it was Sunday, making this, what would you call it, olive branch or proposal of an idea to have a discussion about it. What prompted him to do this?
Well, I think that we've just had the Manchester mayoral election where a party which is 5 months old has just done exceptionally well. You know, we got 9% and we had thousands of people come out and place a vote putting their faith in Restore Britain, which, you know, of course, can't deny is a very new party. And I think that what has prompted us, I won't just say Rupert, but the party in general, to turn around and say, look, we want to find some way to put Britain first rather than party politics first, but we want to say what is going to be best for Britain is by extending an olive branch and saying, right, let's put our cards on the table. Let's work out what is the best strategy in terms of two parties that are positioned on the right to, as I say, improve Britain. And that is what we have done. And I can't say any more than that, I suppose. It is about putting Britain first, and it's not about putting personalities first. It's about putting the British Isles at the forefront of every conversation.
The cards you've put down, they included from Rupert Lowe, as he described, 5 conditions for any kind of cooperation. They include mass deportations, a ban on the burqa, a referendum on the death penalty, deep cuts to welfare, and that former Tory ministers who are now inside Reform, namely sort of Robert Jenrick, Suella Braverman, they must be excluded from any Reform Restore cabinet. Are any of those conditions negotiable?
No, these are absolutely non-negotiable.
So you want people who currently serve in Restore's sort of their version of their sort of shadow cabinet to be taken out of their positions before this can go ahead?
Forgive me, I'm not sure. Did you mean Reform though instead?
Sorry, yes, Reform's shadow cabinet. So Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, who left the Conservatives to join Reform, who hold front bench spokespositions in Reform, they have to be out of those positions before you can sort of make any progress.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is sort of the bare minimum, along with the other points that you mentioned there.
Why do you hate them so much?
Well, because they have been instrumental in the downfall of Britain. Robert Jenrick allowed 1 million migrants into our country in the space of a year. I think that you need to be held to account for that. Obviously, our position on migration is incredibly clear. We want to end the demographic replacement of Britain. We don't just want to, stop migration, but we actually want to reverse mass migration, talking those that have come here illegally, obviously, and people that have come here legally. Farage has famously said historically that that mass deportations is a political impossibility, but we say no, it's not a political impossibility. It's necessary to protect the native people of the British Isles. And if Farage is not willing to take the necessary steps to do that, then a collaboration is not on the table, because that is fundamentally one of the main pillars of what Restore Britain stands for. And as I say, those that have historically served in Conservative cabinets, well, they are instrumental in causing the massive influx of migration. So these people need to be held to account. And I tell you something, I've knocked on many doors when canvassing, and those that have answered the door to me, that have said they're going to vote Reform, when I speak to them about those that are in the Reform Party, they tell me very clearly they're not happy with ex-Tories, but they feel that Reform is the best vehicle, but not so much the most principled party.
Yeah.
A lot of people do want to vote for Restore Britain, but I'm nervous as Reform have pushed the split the vote narrative very, very well. Farage said we were only going to get 1%. When it came to even the council elections.
I understand. If Reform are the best vehicle for, essentially, this is what you are all sort of talking about, getting around to sort of prevent happening from having a sort of either a Labour government or some sort of left form of coalition. What is the point of view if you're only there that helps facilitate the greater likelihood of a Labour or left-wing coalition government coming to force?
Well, I don't believe that Reform is the best vehicle, but that is the narrative that they've managed to convince a huge proportion of those, for example, in the constituency of Makerfield, to which, when I had that conversation with them, we won over many voters. No one owns your vote, and also, more specifically, when it comes to the split the vote narrative, we're pulling in 40% of the country that don't want to vote or haven't voted in the past 30 or 40 years. So I don't subscribe to the split the vote narrative, and I don't think that Reform are the best vehicle. I think Restore Britain is, of course.
Oh, I thought you said Reform. I thought you said the voters recognise that Reform are the best vehicle.
Say it again, apologies.
I thought you said that voters on the doorstep were telling you they recognise that Reform was the best vehicle for their vote in that space.
Yes, as I say, Reform were very successful in the by-election of convincing voters that is the case, to which it's my responsibility as somebody who is at Restore Britain to change their minds on that, and to which we did. So we were very successful in doing that. But there's no denial. Restore is a very new party. Reform is obviously older and has had more time to win over more people. But the fact is, for me, it's a conversation of principle and what is good for the country, and that is the position that I put forward to many people on the doors, and we won, as I say, a huge proportion of people over.
Montgomery Toms, we're going to end it there because we're going to move on to another story, but thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks. Montgomery Toms there, Restore Britain spokesperson.